In this day and age, we're seeing more and more people coming forth with video footage of UFOs, eyewitnesses saying they've seen weird things. We got the Vegas sighting where a guy saw an alien in his backyard and he has footage of it. I'm just going to share my ET experiences starting from minor to major in a meditation. I'd asked Archangel Metatron if I could feel his presence physically. And after about a half an hour with my eyes closed and breathing and being in meditative state, I felt someone grab my forearm, and this freaked me right out. I opened up my eyes, instantly expecting a human being to be sitting there, and all these thoughts were going through my head like, what's the chance of someone grabbing my arm right as I'm thinking this? And I didn't hear no one come in, and when I opened my eyes, there was no one there. It really freaked me out. I closed my eyes, went back into meditation. I was shown in my third eye that there was a UFO about 30 feet above my house, the size of a city block, and that Archangel Metatron was on this ET ship working with these beings. But the next one, my old man was a witness to. I came to visit my old man. He's got a large half-acre backyard surrounded by trees, and at the time, his the neighboring yard was all trees and bush, and there's power lines. We're back there. It's about 1 o'clock at night. We're having a fire. And next thing we know, there's like this clear triangle about 50 feet above the power lines, hovering silently. And I don't know if it was me or my old man that first spotted it, but it got our attention. And this thing was like, if you've ever seen the Predator movie where it looks invisible, but it's kind of wavy, that's how this thing was. And it started to move. And I swear, like, if I had a slingshot, I probably, could have hit this thing. And it started to circle. It went over our house, into the cul-de-sac, past our field of vision, because we're in the backyard. But then it came around and went over the power lines, and it did this 5 times. This was weird to the point where we were like, okay, it's time to put the fire out and go inside. But I ended up asking an intuitive friend of mine. I was like, yo, what the heck was this all about? And she said that it was a alien craft with grays on it that were conducting experiments, and they were powering up their ship from the power lines. However, their shields were malfunctioning, and they were arguing about it because they knew that we could see them. And my friend remote viewed onto the ship. She was going through all the rooms, and she said there was about 4 beings on this ship. And eventually one of them noticed her, and she got freaked out and left. But that was one pretty crazy experience. Another experience I had was a Friday night summer's day back when I was married. The plan was, when I got off work, we were gonna have a outdoor dinner next to our fire pit, which was run off for propane. And after about 5 minutes, the tank ran out. I grabbed it, hopped in my car, and since we lived in a new area, we were kind of quite far away from any gas station, so I had to drive about 10 minutes. And halfway there, I was just driving, and I had this feeling of unconditional love just come over my body. And it was so intense that, even to this day, it's really hard to explain. But the next thing I know, these words were spoken to me. However, the feeling of ecstasy that I had within my body was so intense that I could not actually physically hear what was being said to me. And just as I was about to think, do I need to pull over because I'm not sure if I should be driving, the gas station was there. I pulled over. This energy left. Because I was still new to all these kinds of experiences, I thought I had a visitation from God. And I messaged a couple intuitive friends, and I find out that I was actually visited by a 9th dimensional Arcturian being. But this being was so loving that I just thought it was God, and it was so intense that I couldn't hear what it was saying to me. I remember thinking, man, God just spoke to you and you don't remember what he said. And it was just because the feeling of unconditional love was just so intense I couldn't think of anything else. The next one I'm going to share with you, the last one I'm going to share with you, is by far the craziest. On July 13th, 2014, the day I decided to try to leave this place by starting my car in my garage when Archangel Michael appeared and talked me out of it. I went to bed that night at around 11:30. I was exhausted. That was an early night for me. I was usually going to bed between 1 and 3, but I'd been through so much emotionally that day. I went to bed. I got there. My wife was already passed out. I laid in bed, and because, my life at the time was so stressful, and I just came to this belief that there was no such thing as healing. It wasn't possible. Death to me was the peaceful route, and the fact that Archangel Michael had intervened and messed up my plans. I went to bed that night and I thought about living, and I'd already convinced myself that, I didn't want to live anymore, and I wanted to exit this reality. And I started having tears coming down my eyes because, this was Sunday around 11:30 at night, and I had to wake up at 5:30 to go to my Monday to Friday job as a welder. And I was just laying there and I had tears coming down my eyes, and I put my fists up to the sky and I said, if I'm going to continue living, I need to know what this is all about. And I was pretty much talking to God. And I wasn't consciously thinking this, but subconsciously thinking back, I was pretty much planning on finishing off the job. And around 1:30 that night, somehow as I'm sleeping, I hear the words, "We think you should open up your eyes." And so I open up my eyes, and about 12 to 13 inches away from my face, there's an ET being 6 foot tall, bent over my bed, staring at me. And this was an ugly SOB, let's just say that. If you've ever heard of a tall gray, it's the closest thing I could describe, but it looked nothing like that. It was brown, and its face was square, and this thing was looking at me, this brown square face with big black eyes, little slot nose, and little mouth. And I come to, and I'm looking at this thing. I open up my eyes, and I was like, I just gasped. I lost my breath, and I left my body. And I went into the corner of the room about 5 feet away, and I'm now, my consciousness is in my soul in the corner of the room. I'm looking at my body laying on the bed. I'm looking at my wife at the time, laying beside me, and I'm looking at this brown thing curled over my bed, staring at me, and it was talking to me. However, I was in the corner so afraid that I couldn't hear anything this being was saying to me. When you leave your body and you become terrified, the first thing your soul tries to do is go back into your body. And so I get zoomed into my body. And as I'm going by this thing into my body, I can hear it saying, "We're here to carve our own path." I go into my body, this thing disappears. I take a couple breaths, and I just passed right out. Now, I ran this by about, to date, probably 10 intuitive friends. Excuse me, too much kombucha. And they all said it was a space brother, and he basically came here. Even though I was terrified, the feeling I was getting was that this being was a loving being that was here to console and comfort me. It just freaked the shit out of me because it was an ugly SOB, and who wants to wake up to a ET this far away from their face, right? Not me. And it had good intentions though, and it was here to try to help me, and it was here to say, we have free will, we're here on this planet, and we're here to carve our own path. So those are my ET experiences. If you are just becoming aware that you might not be the only ones out there, welcome to planet Earth. Those are my experiences. Just wanted to share with you guys. That's all I got. Thanks for watching.